Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Got another video for y'all today. Sorry, this one took a little bit. Had a little bit of technical issues. I lost the original video, and then Christmas was the next couple days, and that got a little busy. So I hope you had a happy holidays or Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. But in this video, I'm going to be speaking on how AAA is seemingly not as hyped as it used to be. We had 3 games this year, 2022, that were of a significant experience and hype. Of course, that's Elden Ring, God of War, and Horizon Zero Dawn, or Horizon Forbidden West, sorry. But I will say at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about what the upload schedule is going to be looking like so you guys know what to expect. But let's go ahead and get into it. So, my question that I will hopefully answer by the end of the video is why are AAA experiences have such low expectations? And honestly, I think it's because it's been building up. Every year it seems AAA gets kind of a little more worse, and 2022 really showed that with the releases we had that were AAA. A lot of them weren't great. We had 3 good ones, and that's about it. But by the end of this video, I will talk about how 2023 is looking a lot better for AAA. So this could have just been an off year, but I want to take y'all back to the year 2013 because I feel that is the last great year we had with AAA experiences, as it is the PS3 and Xbox era's last year, and they had some bangers come out. So I'm going to go into 3 of those right now. So Grand Theft Auto 5, The Last of Us, and BioShock Infinite were 3 games that released that year that were in the 90th percentile range, which is something we don't see even this year. God of War scored, I think it scored a 90 something, but we've seen other games not score that high that were AAA. And that year there were a lot of AAA experiences that scored 90% or higher. And I chose these 3 due to them being more relevant in 2022 than the others that did release. So GTA 5 is at a 97%, The Last of Us is at a 95, and BioShock is at 95. So to get more into them, GTA 5 has 107 million units sold since its initial release, and its online component at the time of this recording has 114,280 players playing at the time, which is crazy. That game came out in 2013, and it has a multiplayer amount that is like if the game just came out. Like, that's like Halo Infinite about now, which is crazy in itself. I mean, the game would even go on to win best soundtrack at the VGX Awards, and the game cemented itself as one of the best of 2013. While, like I said, it's still being played like it's a released game that came out this year. Now, there is an argument to be had on whether the game should still be successful due to its shady tactics, which will be another video for another day. But GTA 5 really is one of those all-around great games. You had a great multiplayer and a great single player. Of course, there's an argument to be made if the campaign was as good as previous, but it was a very solid campaign that introduced the new 3 character mode aspect that changed the single player of the Grand Theft Auto universe, which we can see this gameplay mechanic maybe in GTA 6 with the Bonnie and Clyde duo system we're going to see maybe as those leaks showed earlier this year. And then the multiplayer, I mean, they keep updating it. Of course, the updates seem to get worse and worse, but I mean, the multiplayer is pretty solid. It has really fun game modes. I mean, cool cars, clothing system that could be rehauled, but hopefully they do that in the newest game. And I mean, of course, you have the whole map to explore with your friends and have fun and everything. And of course, they put out the casino update, which was the biggest, latest one. So, like I said, GTA 5 has really cemented itself as a legendary game from that year. All right, let's get into the next game. The Last of Us, which is, of course, a game about a man finding a daughter in the only hope he has in this world. Of course, I'll be spoiling the game due to part 1 coming out. A lot of new players will be playing it. But this game is a highlight on how great a video game can be with storytelling, even beating out most movies that year. And I mean, look at it now. It has its own HBO Max series coming out in January. It's an insane feat that few video games actually accomplish. And of course, we'll see if the show's good itself. The original PS3 release of the game sold 3.4 million copies. Well, of course, the PS5, we don't have the numbers, but we can safely assume that it sold more copies than the original did. Now, course, this game really proved how Naughty Dog is an integral unit in PlayStation going into the next generation, as they had proven with Uncharted. As we would know, The Last of Us Part 1 would be the new remaster of the game. They did a Part 2 in 2018, 2019 with Last of Us Part 2, which was greatly controversial, depending on how you felt about the game. And then, of course, we'd have Uncharted 4 on the PlayStation 4. Now, granted, Uncharted really cemented them as well, but that was for the PS3. Then we would get The Last of Us and Uncharted for the PS4 that really showed us that they were a very integral unit in PlayStation's greater first-party games studios. The game would go on to win Best PS3 Game at the VGX and Best Game at the BAFTAs, and of course, would be remembered as the best PlayStation exclusive for the PS3, even though it was at the last year of its life cycle. Of course, we know the PlayStation 4 dropped the same year, and it's interesting because The Last of Us is actually one of my favorite games as well. The storytelling really shocked me when I played it as a kid. I actually traded in my GameCube, which was a big mistake. I traded it in because I didn't have a lot of money to buy The Last of Us, and honestly, like it was worth paying for it. I mean, that game is beautiful, and it's a highlight of how storytelling can be in a video game. Of course, we see games trying to get to the standard that Naughty Dog set. Some of them not getting there, but a lot of them have. And of course, whenever Naughty Dog makes either The Last of Us Part 3 that is rumored to be being made at this moment, or they make another IP or another Uncharted game, I'm sure that they will put the bar up higher in storytelling because they're just really good at it. But my final game for the good games of the year is BioShock. BioShock Infinite was the final entry in that game trilogy, but it really showed, like the two previous, how horrifying and beautiful the world of the BioShock games are. Of course, the first two were in Rapture, and then we have BioShock Infinite that took to the skies. But it was very interesting to see how this game really brought an interesting world and setting to a game series that had a great setting the previous two. Now, this game would go on to tackle racism and other issues that most games won't even do to the extent they did in that game that come out now. That's actually one of the common complaints about games that try to tackle that. Mafia 3 had that issue, where they really didn't tackle it as well as a lot of people had hoped. But the game would go on to sell 3.7 million units in May of 2013 and would win Best Shooter at the VGX and Character of the Year at the same show. Of course, this is really funny because this is really the year that Troy Baker became Troy Baker. We know Troy Baker now as being in almost every game because of just how great of an actor he is. But this game and The Last of Us came out in the same year and really cemented what a great voice actor he was. And he would go on to be in, of course, the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare game, other big titles, of course, reprising his role in Last of Us Part 2. So it's very interesting to see how in 2013 that set that man up to be the voice actor he is today. So also, I forgot to mention, this game would win Best Song at the VGAs as well. Now, these three games have impacted the industry. Now, you may be wondering, well, what does BioShock have to do with it? So if you didn't watch the Game Awards, the Judas game was announced. It's made by the creator of BioShock. And it is very BioShock heavy. You can just see the tone, and you can tell by the art style and the gameplay that they did show off in this trailer. And it's got a lot of people wondering if this is a BioShock game or if this is just a new IP altogether. So it's very interesting. I can't wait to play the game. I'm hoping to see some more, and of course, I will be covering it on the channel when it comes out. So, of course, these games have impacted the industry and will never be forgotten, whether that be because of the online component, which has become its own beast that you can argue is too big for its britches. Or the game has been remastered twice due to the story being groundbreaking and impactful and never becoming dated or old. And of course, we see is put into an HBO show. Or the game was the last, but would go on to define what an FPS could be in the storytelling light that isn't Call of Duty or Battlefield, by tackling issues that people do not enjoy speaking about. But the game crafts the story so well that issues can be explored, which is something very powerful and a unique way of storytelling that can give you an innovative time with the game. Now, these games would be some of the last great AAA experiences for the PlayStation 3, as the PS4 would launch in November of the same year, and we would begin to see the deadly start of what we've come to hate: microtransactions, games being unfinished, and the rest being brought on by DLC and game-excluding features. But to introduce them, this is a big deal. I mean, these games really do cement the downfall of what would become what we hate about gaming and what seems to get worse every year. Of course, these games would even alienate the games series that they're based off of by changing with the times or ruining mechanics that made your game so great. So, of course, I'm staying in the year 2013. These are the 3 games that I would see as the beginning of the AAA nightmare. Dead Space 3, Call of Duty Ghost, and the Devil May Cry reboot. These were 3 games that came out in 2013 that show the end of great series. So, while, of course, Dead Space 3 received a decent score of 76, the game marked what EA would be in the future. You could argue Mass Effect 3 does the same thing. This game was stripped away from most of the core mechanics and even the survival horror aspect that made the game fun and what you loved about Dead Space. I mean, Dead Space 2 is regarded as the best game and one of the best survival horror shooters. Dead Space 3 took that and just punched you in the face. This game would, of course, this is a positive for a third-person shooter mechanic. It introduced a gun bench mechanic that allowed you to mix and match weapons in the game, which would be cool if it wasn't Dead Space. Why did EA feel, even with their later games, that every game had to be the same? Because they were popular shooters at the time. Third-person shooters were. And it ruined Mass Effect. It ruined Dead Space. And, of course, we would get Anthem years later. That was horrible. BioWare, I mean, dear God. I don't understand, like, who in EA thought this was a good idea. I mean, it's just, ugh, dude. But this game would be the first to introduce microtransactions before the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One era. And it's crazy to laugh and see the prices of what they were then, because it's better. And we thought it was insane. The game's microtransactions are just mainly upgrade and weapon packs that range from $5 to 99 cents. And you see this, though. This is a teaser to Battlefield 2. Battlefront 2. I mean, with the characters. Dude, it's so insane. EA, like, they could pull this. They pulled it every year after year with their games. They pulled it with FIFA. They pulled it with Madden. It's insane that they do that. Finally, they're in check. They finally have gotten they've been destroyed almost because of it. I mean, Battlefront 2 was a Star Wars game. It proved that the Star Wars IP can fail if you push fans hard enough. It's just interesting to think on how Dead Space 3 and other EA titles began to abandon what made their franchises great. I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's crazy that they would even do this. My next game is Call of Duty Ghost, which was the first Call of Duty that marked the downward spiral of what would become the featureless, creativeless, and greediness Call of Duty we would come to see. Now, the game had a really cool zombie-like feature called Extinction. I'll give them that credit. But the game also didn't have cut features we would see in later Call of Duties, like leaderboards, kill-death ratio, and private matches that were in the integral part of these games. But the game lacked any drive. I don't know if Infinity Ward was just tired of making Call of Duties, or they wanted to make a Modern Warfare, but they were forced to make Ghost. We really don't know. But the game's campaign was pretty lackluster with what was exposed, reused assets, which isn't a bad thing. But when your players can tell, kind of messing up. Because games use reuse assets all the time. But when your single player campaign, it's obvious by animations from Modern Warfare 2, you got to do better than that. Which they did. We would see them make the new Modern Warfare series, which, even though it's a reboot, they're great. They're great games. Now, the missions as well were lackluster, way too over the top, that had no resolution, or you never felt impact on the characters that were introduced in the game. And by the time it was over, you just wanted to throw your TV out the window. Dude, how infuriating the ending would make you feel. If you've played it, you know. You wanted to, like, punch somebody at Infinity Ward because it was just dog shit. It was terrible. It felt half-assed. Which is something we would see in Call of Duty for the next several years. The multiplayer of the game was different from previous iterations, but it lacked the creativity and love that was made in Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops, World at War. It's interesting. This game, though, introduced the a soldier mechanic, which was interesting. It was a cool thing to see in a Call of Duty because everyone's wanted to do that since COD 4. But the game maps were too open and it hurt the flow of running and gunning as spawns were broken, which is something that continued in the next Call of Duties. Where, I mean, you would bump into somebody random and get gunned down because they spawned right in your face and they said, "Hey!" I mean, it's crazy, dude. That was the multiplayer of this game. And of course, this multiplayer introduced the destroyable maps. It was the first big introduction of that due to the engine and the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One being greater to show that. But it just, man, it was so bad. It's so bad. It's regarded as the worst Call of Duty to a lot of people. And, you know, it's interesting because it came out on the PlayStation 3, but people really played it on the PlayStation 4. It's just, it was a game. Now, this game would inspire, I guess, or infamously inspire the soulless entries that would make cash for the next couple years. But my final game is Devil May Cry. The Devil May Cry reboot would mark the beginning of most AAA games being reimagined or remasters that would go on to create a stale market when it comes to new IP in the gaming world. The game, though, was Capcom's attempt at trying to grab the younger, more edgier audience into the world of DMC, which DMC was edgy enough. It's freaking Devil May Cry. Come on, you play a half demon. Like, dude. But, of course, it didn't work. The game was hated for the new interpretation of characters. And if you've seen the Angry Joe review, you know what I'm talking about. They just weren't represented right. I mean, Dante was terrible. I mean, they were just downright disrespected. And the games felt like a slap in the face. The old fans of the game, there's literally a joke with Dante where a white wig falls on his head and he goes, "Not in a million years." Get out of here, dude. The new interpretation, like I said, of Dante was horrible. But the game had the fun combat of DMC. It's an interesting thing. Like, Combat Evolved was a lot like this. Like, the remake was just garbage, but you thankfully could go back to the old graphics and play it. It was just, it's in that mix of reboots or remakes that just don't need to happen and aren't worth it because they're just terrible. But thankfully, the Devil May Cry games would actually go on to see a fifth game that is of the main story that wasn't this reboot. And it reinvigorated the series. I'm actually going to play for the first time the Devil May Cry games due to this fifth entry. I watched some of a Let's Play. I really thought it was cool. I want to try it out. So I'm playing the originals. I will not be touching the reboot, but I will be playing the mainline story games. Yep, guys, that's all I've got for you today. The games I spoke of were both great and not so great, but they show how great AAA experiences can be, but also hints at the dark world that can be AAA experiences that we have seen specifically in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One era. But like I said, 2023 is looking like a good year for AAA. You've got the Hogwarts game, the Dead Space remake, you've got Spider-Man 2, which is what I'm super hyped for. I mean, you've got all kinds of games. I've talked about them on what I will be covering, and 2023 looks good. It's going to be busy, but it looks good. So here's hoping that we have better AAA experiences that will show that AAA in the new generation is something to watch out for. Now, of course, we thankfully have had the indie market explode and be wonderful. There's so many good games that have come out through the indie game world that honestly has helped these people get better publishers and into studios they've maybe wanted to work for their entire life. So, but that's all I've got for y'all today. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Helps me bring more audience members to talk about the games we speak of in these videos or just topics we speak of in general in the comments. And if you want to be extra thankful, maybe got that holiday spirit in you, why don't you consider subscribing? Helps me grow the channel, helps show the algorithm that my videos are worth being pumped out into the ecosystem, and also hit the notification bell if you've already done that. It helps you know when I'm making videos, when they release, maybe some community stuff. And yeah, I just want to thank y'all for checking the channel out in 2022. I can't wait for 2023. as it's going to be great, because in 2023 I'm going to have a 3 to 2 video upload schedule. I'm going to be uploading Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, or Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday will be a bonus video if I've got the time due to school and work. But I'm hopefully going to be beginning a 3 video cycle, so expect videos on those days. I'm going to stay vigilant on it. I'm going to get those videos out to y'all. I've just been busy with the holiday season, so you know how that rolls. But again, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a happy new year. I hope to see you before New Year. I'll officially give you that happy new year in my last video. But if not, thank you for watching. Y'all have a great day or night wherever you're at. Thanks, guys. Peace.